God says, stop worrying. You were born for a suddenly breakthrough. Beloved, God is whispering to your spirit right now. Stop worrying. The weight you carry, the nights you lie awake, the doubts that grip your heart, they are not your truth. You were not born to live in anxiety. You were born for breakthrough, and not just any breakthrough, but a suddenly breakthrough. What you call impossible is already finished in the unseen. What looks delayed is already written into your destiny. The very thing you fear is the stage for God's swift intervention. Worry chains your mind to what is fading. But faith unlocks what is eternal. When God moves, it will not be slow, it will not be partial, it will not be small. It will be sudden, undeniable, and overflowing. You were chosen to experience it. Your tears, your prayers, your silent hopes, they are about to collide with God's appointed time. So lift your head, for the breakthrough is not coming. It has already begun. The invisible seed of breakthrough, beloved, when God whispers a desire into your heart, it is not random, it is not meaningless, it is not a passing thought that you created on your own. It is the invisible seed of breakthrough, planted by heaven itself. Every longing, every holy desire, every vision of a better tomorrow is proof that there is already something within you destined to be born. You must understand this. You do not chase your desires, you give birth to them. You are not running after breakthrough, you are carrying breakthrough within your spirit right now. Worry becomes the greatest thief in this process, for worry is like a weed that chokes the seed, keeps it from sprouting, keeps it hidden in the soil where it was meant to grow into manifestation. You must learn to see your desire not as an uncertain hope, but as a divine certainty, a reality waiting to unfold. The same way an apple seed contains the full tree, its branches, its fruit, its shade, so too your inner desire contains the full expression of what you seek. The tree is hidden in the seed, and your breakthrough is hidden in your longing. The moment you received the desire was the moment the answer was planted. That means before you ever prayed, before you ever cried out, before you ever struggled in silence, God had already provided the seed of the solution. Your breakthrough is not somewhere far off in a distance. Tomorrow, it is already here in seed form, waiting for you to nurture it with faith. Worry is poison to the seed, but faith is water. Every time you imagine your desire fulfilled, you are watering the seed. Every time you say, it is mine, you are watering the seed. Every time you rest instead of fret, you are nurturing what God already placed in you. Breakthrough does not begin in the outer world. It begins in the soil of your heart. That is why you must stop worrying, because the very thing you are anxious about already has its solution growing within you. Think of the farmer. He does not dig up the seed every morning to check if it is sprouting. He trusts the process. He knows unseen work is happening underground. He waters, he waits, he guards the soil, but he does not panic. He knows the fruit will come in its time. Child of God, your suddenly breakthrough works the same way. You cannot see it yet, but it is working. You cannot touch it yet, but it is forming. The invisible realm is more real than what you call reality, for it is the invisible that gives birth to the visible. When you worry, you deny the unseen process, but when you believe, you align yourself with the rhythm of heaven. This is why you must learn to shift your focus from appearances to essence. Stop asking, where is it? Why hasn't it happened? And start declaring, it is already mine, it is already done, I am already carrying it. A pregnant mother does not question every day whether she is truly carrying life. She knows it even before she feels the first kick. She eats, she rests, she prepares the nursery because she trusts invisible life within. That is what God is calling you to do. Prepare for what you already carry. Do not act like one who is barren. Act like one who is expecting. If the seed of financial freedom is in you, prepare as though it is here. If the seed of healing is in you, live as though wholeness is already pulsing through your body. If the seed of restoration is in you, walk as though the relationship is already reconciled. Expectancy is the proof of faith, and expectancy is the atmosphere in which suddenly breakthroughs erupt. Some of you worry because you believe the size of your problem is greater than the size of your seed, but God wants you to know that within the tiniest seed lies the power to split through concrete. The seed of faith, the seed of desire, the seed of breakthrough is stronger than the walls of impossibility standing against you. Nothing in your outer world can block what is alive in your inner world unless you allow worry to strangle it. That is why the Spirit keeps whispering, let go of the worry, hold fast to the seed. The soil of your mind and heart must remain fertile for the seed to thrive. Guard what you think about, for every fearful thought is like a stone on top of the soil. Guard what you speak, for every negative word is like pouring salt on the roots. Guard what you meditate on, for every image of failure is like darkness withholding the sun. The seed within you is sensitive, it responds to the nourishment you give it. Do not let voices of fear, the opinions of people, or the evidence of current circumstances rob you of what you already carry. Seeds grow in silence, and so does your breakthrough. It is not about striving harder, it is about believing deeper. It is not about begging God to send what you lack. It is about recognizing that God has already given. He placed the seed in you before you knew how to ask. He gave the answer before you cried the prayer. He provided the way before you even saw the mountain. That is why breakthrough often feels sudden. It appears overnight, but in truth it has been unfolding within you all along. One day it is unseen, the next day it bursts forth, and everyone calls it sudden. But you will know it was not sudden, it was inevitable. You were not born for worry, you were born for breakthrough. You were not created to live in fear, you were created to manifest what God placed in you. Your role is to nurture the seed, to protect the seed, to feed the seed with trust, imagination, gratitude, and expectancy. When you do this, the harvest becomes unstoppable. So right now, release the worry. See your desire not as something far off, but as something already alive within you. Speak life to it daily, live as though it is finished. Let your actions testify of your faith, and watch as the invisible seed of breakthrough suddenly bursts into visible reality, shaking off the old and ushering in the new. This is the way of the Spirit. What is hidden will be revealed, what is buried will sprout, what was planted in secret will manifest openly. God has already sown the seed of your suddenly breakthrough. You need only to believe it, nurture it, and refuse to let worry choke it. The power of inner agreement, beloved, everything in your life flows from silent agreements you make within yourself, for nothing enters your world unless it first finds a resting place in your heart. Agreement is the spiritual law that determines whether you live in fear or in faith, in delay or in breakthrough, in struggle or in sudden victory. What you consent inwardly will eventually express itself outwardly, because the outer world is nothing but the mirror of your inner state. If you agree with worry, you will manifest more situations that justify it. If you agree with peace, you will see peace multiplied in your path. If you agree with lack, you will attract more emptiness. But if you agree with abundance, life will open its gates to flood you with supply. The mistake many make is believing that power lies in the external, what people say, what the economy looks like, what the doctor declares. But the truth is, power lies in the inner consent you give to those reports. Agreement is not merely what you say with your lips, it is what you accept as true in the quietness of your spirit. You may declare blessings with your mouth, but if in your secret heart you agree with defeat, then defeat will shape your world. Agreement is a covenant between your inner man and the truth you choose to embrace, and this covenant becomes flesh in your experience. The reason God calls you to stop worrying is because worry itself is a form of inner agreement with fear. It is silently declaring, this situation is greater than God's promise. And yet faith is the opposite agreement. It says, this situation must bow to the promise of God already alive in me. Agreement is like a seed. You cannot see it, but it grows into a visible harvest. Every time you accept a thought, whether hopeful or fearful, you are planting agreement in the soil of your heart. That is why you must be vigilant, guarding the gates of your mind, choosing carefully what you accept, for agreement works both ways. It can either build your destiny or sabotage it. Consider how two people can go through the same storm, yet one emerges stronger and the other broken. It is not the storm that determined the outcome, it was their inner agreement. One agreed with despair, the other with victory. One surrendered to the voice of fear, the other clung to the voice of promise. Agreement sets the tone of your inner world, and your inner world commands your outer world. Beloved, do not underestimate the creative power of your consent. Heaven itself partners with the agreements you make, for God gave you the authority to choose. That is why the scripture says, choose this day whom you will serve. When you choose to serve worry, your agreement summons its reality. When you choose to serve faith, your agreement summons the breakthrough that has been waiting for release. Suddenly, breakthroughs are born the moment you align your inner consent with God's unseen reality rather than the world's fleeting evidence. What you feel within is more important than what you see without. For the unseen is eternal while the seen is temporary. Agreement is not passive, it is active alignment. When you agree with health, you begin to carry yourself as one already healed. When you agree with abundance, you stop living like one who is broke and start making room for provision. When you agree with restoration, you no longer rehearse the pain but prepare for the reconciliation. Agreement shifts your atmosphere, not tomorrow, not one day, but the moment you embrace it. Even in silence, your inner agreement speaks volumes to the universe. It tells life what to deliver. Worry attracts delays, faith attracts acceleration. Agreement is the bridge between desire and manifestation. This is why the enemy fights so hard for your mind, because if he can get your agreement in fear, he knows you will sabotage yourself. But if you rise and declare, I refuse to agree with lack, I refuse to agree with defeat, I refuse to agree with fear, then heaven rushes to honor your new alignment. Agreement is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing a higher reality. You may see bills, but you agree with supply. You may feel pain, but you agree with healing. You may hear no, but you agree with yes. Agreement is the bold decision to elevate your inner consent above outer appearances. The world calls it denial, but heaven calls it faith, and it is in this state of faith, agreement, that suddenly breakthroughs manifest, for the outer world has no choice but to mirror the dominant agreement within. That is why Jesus would ask, do you believe? Before healing, for the healing was already finished. It only required inner agreement to manifest in the body. The blind agreed with sight, and their eyes opened. The lame agreed with walking, and their legs strengthened. Agreement was the door, and breakthrough was the entry. Child of God, understand that your consent is powerful enough to unlock or to block what God has already prepared. You cannot live divided, one part of you agreeing with fear, the other part with faith. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways because his agreements contradict each other. Choose one agreement and abide in it. Say with boldness, I agree with breakthrough, I agree with abundance, I agree with peace, I agree with victory. Speak it, think it, feel it, and soon you will live it. Stop rehearsing the negative reports, for every rehearsal is another agreement. Stop meditating on what could go wrong, for meditation is agreement extended over time. Instead, rehearse the victory, meditate on the finished work, picture the breakthrough in your imagination, and rest in the knowing that your inner consent has already set things in motion. Agreement is the womb of suddenly. Once you consent, the unseen begins to arrange, align, and accelerate in ways you cannot comprehend. Suddenly, doors open. Suddenly, healing manifests. Suddenly, provision appears, not because it was late, but because agreement finally unlocked what was waiting. So I tell you today, guard your agreements, for they are the architects of your destiny. Your inner consent is the law that governs your world. Choose today to break every silent covenant with fear, lack, sickness, and despair. Tear down the agreements that do not serve your purpose. Stand boldly in the new alignment of faith, expectancy, and divine trust. For the moment you align your consent with God's truth, the outer world must rearrange itself to reflect that truth. This is the power of inner agreement. It is the key to your suddenly breakthrough. Suddenly does not mean slowly, beloved. One of the greatest mysteries of God's timing is the reality that what looks delayed in your life is not delayed at all. It is simply being prepared in the unseen, ripening until the moment it bursts forth as what we call a suddenly. Many grow weary in waiting because they confuse the silence of preparation with the denial of their desire, but the truth is that heaven is never slow, heaven is precise, heaven is exact, and the so-called waiting period is not about God dragging his feet, but about the unseen aligning with the fullness of your destiny. Suddenly does not mean slowly. Suddenly is the revelation of what has been working behind the veil all along. Imagine a tree. For years its roots dig deeper, unseen beneath the soil, invisible to the eye, and then in one season the shoots break through the ground almost overnight. Did it happen suddenly? To the eye, yes, but beneath the surface, a process was unfolding. The whole time, this is how your breakthrough works. You may look at your life and say, why is it taking so long? But in truth, God has been preparing the soil, strengthening the roots, aligning the circumstances, and maturing you for the weight of the blessing. Suddenly is never random. It is the visible eruption of what has been maturing invisibly. Think of a pregnant woman. For months the world sees only her growing belly, but the real miracle is happening within. Then one day the child is born, and to those outside it seems sudden, but to her it was a process. Likewise, your breakthrough has been forming inside the womb of the unseen, and when the appointed time comes, what once looked like a barren season will suddenly give birth. Many confuse delay with denial, but delay is often the disguise of suddenly. It is the gap where God strengthens your faith, teaches you surrender, refines your character, and prepares you to hold what you asked for, because if he gave it before you were ready, the very breakthrough meant to bless you could break you. Suddenly requires preparation, and preparation is often hidden, silent, and uncomfortable. This is why some of you have been walking through seasons of pruning. God cut away relationships, opportunities, habits, even environments, not because he was punishing you, but because he was preparing you. The pruning felt like loss, but it was making room for suddenly. Suddenly does not mean slowly, but it also does not mean carelessly. It means exact, perfect, divinely orchestrated. When you look at Scripture, you see this pattern everywhere. Joseph was in prison for years, forgotten by man but remembered by God, and then suddenly he was summoned before Pharaoh and promoted to second in command over Egypt. Was it sudden? Yes, but the prison years were not wasted. They were preparation. Moses spent 40 years in the desert, hidden from the spotlight, and then suddenly God appeared in the burning bush and sent him to deliver a nation. Was it sudden? Yes, but the desert years were shaping his character. Esther lived quietly in the palace, unknown and overlooked, until suddenly she was positioned to save her people. David tended sheep in the fields, ignored by his family, until suddenly he was anointed king, and later faced Goliath with power no one expected. Every suddenly is preceded by hidden seasons, and those hidden seasons are not delay but divine process. That is why you must not let worry deceive you. Worry whispers, "It's too late. It will never happen," but heaven whispers, "Wait, for the moment of suddenly is nearer than you think." Suddenly is never slow, it only feels slow to the impatient mind. Time is not your enemy, it is your ally, for time gives space for preparation. Think of how lightning strikes, the atmosphere builds, the charge increases, the tension rises, and then suddenly, in one flash, the sky lights up. Your breakthrough is like lightning. It may look like nothing is happening, but the charge is building, the energy is gathering, the alignment is forming, and then suddenly everything shifts in one divine moment. This is why you must hold your peace, why you must trust the unseen, why you must refuse to give up in the waiting. Because the truth is, you are not waiting for God. God is waiting for you to align, to believe, to consent, to release worry, to prepare yourself for the weight of what is coming, and when the inner alignment meets the outer readiness, suddenly will not be slow. It will be swift, unstoppable, undeniable. Some of you will look back and wonder how things shifted so quickly, but you will realize it was not quick, it was precise. Suddenly is not about speed, it is about divine timing. You may think years have been wasted, but in the hands of God no time is wasted. The moments you called delay were seasons where roots were digging deep, so that when the fruit came, it would not wither under pressure. The tears you cried, the prayers you whispered, the faith you held onto in silence, they were not in vain. Every tear watered the soil, every prayer cultivated the seed, every act of faith was preparing the ground. Suddenly does not mean slowly. It means silently prepared, suddenly revealed. And when it comes, it will be so swift that no enemy can stop it, no door can shut it, no opposition can reverse it. Suddenly is the language of breakthrough because it reminds you that heaven's timing is not measured by your clock. While you think in days and years, God works in moments. One divine moment can overturn years of struggle. One suddenly can restore decades of loss. One suddenly can shift your story forever. Beloved, stop measuring God's power by the ticking of a clock. Time is subject to him. He can redeem, accelerate, multiply, and restore in a moment what you thought would take a lifetime. So when you feel weary and waiting, remind yourself, I am not waiting for nothing. I am ripening for suddenly. My roots are deepening, my faith is strengthening, my spirit is aligning, and when the time is right, the breakthrough will not crawl. It will come rushing in like a flood. Do not confuse hidden with forgotten. Do not confuse waiting with wasting. Do not confuse silence with absence. God is not slow, he is exact, and when suddenly comes, you will see why it could not have come sooner or later, only in this exact moment, only in this perfect way. Suddenly is not slow, it is certain, and it is near. Release the burden of control, beloved. The reason so many hearts are heavy, the reason so many minds are restless, the reason so many souls are weary is because we are trying to carry what only God was meant to carry. Worry is nothing more than the fruit of control, the silent belief that we must hold every string, manage every detail, fix every problem, and secure every outcome. But the truth is, control is an illusion. You cannot make the sun rise, you cannot force the wind to blow, you cannot command tomorrow to unfold on your terms, and yet you spend your nights and days tightening your grip on life as though your strength could hold back the tides, and so God whispers to you, release the burden of control, for you were never meant to carry it. Surrender is not weakness, it is strength in its highest form, for it is the recognition that what is beyond you is not beyond God. It is the trust that the one who authored your story knows the chapters ahead better than you ever could. Worry is the attempt to play God, to imagine that by thinking hard enough, fearing long enough, or planning deep enough you can guarantee safety. But safety has never been in your control. It has always been in his hands. Look at the lilies of the field. They do not spin, they do not labor, yet they are clothed in beauty beyond Solomon's glory. Look at the birds of the air. They do not toil, they do not store, yet they are fed daily by the unseen provision of heaven. If creation itself is cared for without striving, why should you, beloved child of God, live crushed under the weight of trying to control what was never assigned to you? Release the burden of control, because the more you try to force life, the more life resists you. Control creates tension, and tension blocks flow. When you surrender, you enter the rhythm of divine timing, and suddenly breakthroughs happen not by strain but by grace. Control says, I must figure this out, but surrender says, it is already figured out. Control says, I must make this happen, but surrender says, it is already done. Control locks the door, but surrender opens the floodgates. Many of you have delayed your breakthrough, not because God was unwilling, but because your grip was too tight. You were holding on to your way, your timeline, your method, your plan. And God could not release his suddenly because your hands were too full to receive. Surrender is not about doing nothing, it is about letting go of the illusion that you are the source. You still act, but you act from rest. You still move, but you move in trust. You still plan, but you do not panic. You still decide, but you no longer despair. Surrender is partnership with heaven, where your part is obedience and God's part is outcome. Too often we try to reverse the order, attempting to manipulate outcomes while neglecting obedience, but your breakthrough is not in the outcome, it is in the alignment. The moment you align, outcomes shift. That is why surrender is the gateway to suddenly. Because suddenly is not something you make, it is something you allow. Think of a river. When you resist it, you struggle against its current, exhausting yourself, making little progress. But when you release and let the current carry you, you move faster, smoother, further. Life is that river, and God's Spirit is the current. The burden of control is the struggle against the flow, but surrender is resting in the current and letting it carry you exactly where you need to be. Beloved, some of you are tired not because life is heavy, but because you are carrying it wrongly. A yoke was promised to you, but it was not one of strain. It was easy and light because he bears the weight while you walk beside him. If your yoke feels unbearable, it is not because God failed. It is because you are carrying what he told you to release. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the timeline. Let go of need to know every step before you take it. Faith is not certainty about the future. It is certainty about God's presence in the future. When you live in faith, you do not need to know the details because you trust the author. The potter does not consult the clay before shaping it, yet the clay resists, forgetting that its destiny is in the wisdom of the artist's hands. Do not resist your shaping season. Do not fight the detours. Do not clutch the old when God is trying to release the new. The longer you cling to control, the longer you delay your suddenly. But the moment you release, things accelerate, align, and unfold. Think of Abraham. He was promised a son, but instead of waiting, he tried to control the promise, and Ishmael was born, bringing unnecessary conflict. Yet when he finally released, Isaac came, the child of promise, in the perfect timing of God. Think of Peter on the stormy sea. When his eyes were on the waves, he tried to control his steps and he sank. But when he released his fear and fixed his gaze on Jesus, he walked where no man had walked before. Every miracle is born in surrender. Every suddenly emerges when the hands release and the heart rests. And do you not see, worry never added a single hour to your life. It only stole peace from the hours you had. Control never prevented storms. It only drained your strength before the waves even rose. Release the burden, beloved, because breakthrough comes not through fear's grip, but through faith. Rest. And here is the paradox. When you let go, you actually gain control, because the one who governs the winds and the seas begins to act on your behalf. What seemed impossible becomes easy. What was delayed becomes accelerated. What was closed suddenly opens, not because you forced it, but because you released it. And when God carries what you cannot, suddenly the impossible becomes inevitable. So I urge you today, unclench your fists, loosen your grip, release the heavy illusion that you are holding the universe together. Breathe and let God do what only He can do. Surrender is not defeat, it is the doorway to victory, and when you walk through that door, you will discover that suddenly was waiting all along on the other side of your release. Living in the breakthrough now, beloved, the greatest deception of worry is the idea that your breakthrough is always somewhere ahead of you, that the life you long for is trapped in some far-off tomorrow, and that you must strain, wait, and suffer until it arrives. But the Spirit whispers, stop postponing what is already here. You were not created to live in the distance between someday and maybe. You were created to live in the reality of now, because breakthrough is not an event that suddenly arrives. It is a state of being you must enter into before it can reveal itself in your world. You must understand this mystery. The outer life only mirrors the inner life. So if you keep saying, one day I will be free, one day I will be healed, one day I will be provided for, one day I will be whole, then life can only echo that delay and keep your breakthrough at a distance. But the moment you declare, I am free now, I am healed now, I am supplied now, I am whole now, something in the invisible begins to shift, and suddenly your world rushes to mirror what you have accepted within yourself. Living in the breakthrough now does not mean you deny your present challenges. It means you refuse to let them define your reality. It means you choose to identify with the promise more than with the problem. It means you stop rehearsing the evidence of defeat and start rehearsing the vision of victory. The world calls this pretending, but heaven calls this faith, for faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you live in the breakthrough now, you are not pretending. It is the most real thing you can do, because you are aligning yourself with eternal truth rather than temporary facts. Consider the child who receives a gift promised by a loving parent. Even before the gift is wrapped, that child celebrates as though it is already his, because the word of the giver is enough. That is how you must live. You must dance before the music plays. You must celebrate before the door opens. You must thank God before the answer arrives. For in truth, the answer has already arrived in the invisible and only awaits your recognition. Living in the breakthrough now means training your senses to respond not to what appears but to what is declared. It means speaking as though it is done, walking as though it is finished, preparing as though it is certain. Imagine a woman who believes she will move into a new home. If she truly believes, she begins to pack, she begins to plan, she begins to decorate in her imagination, and soon her actions align with her faith. So it must be with you. If you believe in breakthrough, prepare for it. If you believe in provision, create space for it. If you believe in healing, walk in strength. If you believe in restoration, extend forgiveness and make room for reconciliation. Living in the breakthrough now is not waiting, it is embodying. It is not hoping, it is inhabiting. It is not someday, it is today. When you live this way, suddenly breakthroughs erupt, not because they were far away, but because you finally aligned with what was already yours. Remember this, God has already blessed you with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places. The work is finished, the provision is released, the healing is secured, the victory is done. The only question is whether you will step into it by faith or remain outside of it. Through worry, many postpone their breakthrough because they keep saying, when this happens, then I will rejoice. When that changes, then I will have peace. When they come back, then I will feel whole. But you must learn to reverse the order. Rejoice now, and the situation will change. Have peace. now, and the chaos will calm. Feel whole now, and reconciliation will follow. For life does not give you joy and then let you rejoice. You rejoice, and joy manifests. Life does not give you peace and then let you rest. You rest, and peace appears. The world does not shape you. You shape the world by the state you embody. This is the mystery of living in the breakthrough now. And it is here, beloved, that worry loses its power, because worry feeds on the future. But when you bring everything into the present, there is nothing left for worry to hold onto. Worry says, what if tomorrow fails? But faith says, I live in breakthrough now. Worry says, what if it never comes? But faith says, it is already here. Worry says, one day. But faith says, today. When you make this shift, suddenly you discover that the things you thought were far away were always within reach, waiting for you to step into them. Think of the prodigal son. He rehearsed speeches of unworthiness. He imagined himself a servant, but the moment he returned, the father clothed him in the robe of sonship, showing that what he thought he had lost was already his. The same is true for you. You think you must earn, strive, or beg, but what you long for is already yours by inheritance. To live in the breakthrough now is to live as a son, not a beggar, as an heir, not an orphan. It is to stop stretching toward what you already carry and instead release it into expression. Beloved, you were born for breakthrough, and that breakthrough is not tomorrow. It is now. Do not wait for evidence. Become the evidence. Do not wait for the sign. Be the sign. Do not wait for the door. Walk as though it is open, and it will open. For the kingdom of God is not a future event. It is within you now. And when you live in that reality, heaven bends to your agreement, and suddenly what seemed far away collapses into the present moment. This is how you stop worrying and begin living, not in lack, not in delay, but in the fullness of what God already finished. So I tell you, begin today to speak as though it is done, to act as though it is finished, to live as though the breakthrough is now. Do not postpone your joy. Do not delay your peace. Do not withhold your gratitude until something changes. Rejoice, rest, and give thanks now, for this is the key to living in your suddenly breakthrough.